If you do the work of the Father, one are of the foremost devoted and acts that you must employ, right? Now, not as an employment to an individual, no, but one act that you must be devoted to is to constantly ensure that you know the Father, right? And it's so exceptional how that the access to the Father is Jesus, right? And meaning there is no way you can actually know the Father if you do not see the Son, right? There's no way you can actually know the Father if you do not see the Son. Jesus outrightly declares, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can actually come to the Father except by me. So one way we know that what you declare is life is that in it we see the Father, right? But it is an embodiment of truth because it wears all that Jesus is, and all that Jesus is not just a body of information, right? It's a knowledge that was purposefully, documented and not necessarily crafted by men, but then these men spoke because the Lord gave them their inspiration. I do believe particularly that the first being, that spoke about Jesus in the Bible wasn't even the prophets. It was Jesus. It was God himself. Jesus himself. Yeah, we could see it even in Genesis, the font of mine. Where it says, and Genesis 3 to be precise, where it says, the seed of the woman shall bruise the head of the serpent, and then the serpent will bruise his heels. That's God talking about Jesus. So what I'm saying is this: see the conversation of God. Conversation of God is centered around the Son, which is Jesus, right? And you say you're talking about Jesus, you're preaching about Jesus, but then we do not arrive at the Father. It says the seed of the woman. This speaks of a son. And then not necessarily a son. And then there's no way you can talk about the son without arriving at the Father. So meaning the language of God, right, and his Son are the same, right? You can't separate Jesus' sayings from the sayings of God. And it's crazy. That's because the purpose of Jesus was godly. It was God informed, God made, God inspired, in as much as yes, it is for man, as we have been taught outrightly. But on the long run, when we sit down and truly understand the scriptures, we get to realize that salvation was more of a benefit to God than it was for man. All right. This is not that conversation where I would literally have to, buttress on me right now. Well, what I'm saying to you is this: then if you are a teacher and a preacher of the gospel, the Father must be the destination everybody would live from. Right? When you preach on Sunday, Sunday is coming. Right, and you will preach Jesus, and then when you finally preach Jesus, a proof that indeed Jesus was revealed is that we see the Father at the end of the day. Right, is that we begin the next week, which is like the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We begin from the standpoint of the fellowship that God's faithfulness, has called us, into, and that's just the remarkable thing. So, man of God, woman of God. Jesus is our message, and how do I know I preach Jesus? When you open it up, what do we see? Do we see the Father, right? And this is one of the reasons why freedom looks like a cliche or pseudo, because you try to cast out demons from them, but you do not put in Jesus, into their hearts. Their eyes do not see Jesus. Their ears do not hear Jesus. And if that doesn't happen, and how do they even know the language of the Father? Whereas the language of the Father is the language of the Son. Come on.